Hello, it's good evening from All India Educators Forum. Good to get back to the webinar after a long time. So we have an excellent panel, people joining across India and of course across the world, I should say. And we have 12 speakers today who's going to present their thought process on how to create a dynamic classroom. So we have a lot of educators here with varied experiences. I'm sure those who are listening to us today can carry back something to their schools and can implement this. So I welcome all the panelists who have given their precious time for empowering other educators. So it's all about empowerment, it's all about sharing, and I'm sure that our audience will go enriched after this session of ours. So, on behalf of All India Educators Forum, I would like to invite all our listeners today to this wonderful panel discussion that we have organized for you. And I'm going to start off by introducing the moderator for the day, Nisha ma'am, Nisha Ramchandani ma'am. And she is joining. That's why when I said that not only from India, we have teachers joining from across the globe, because she is joining us today from Lagos in Nigeria. And she has over 20 years of experience. And she is currently the supervisor for the middle school and head of children with special needs. She's in that department. And she is, of course, a school innovation ambassador, a program which was launched by the Ministry of Education, besides being a Microsoft innovative educator. So we are glad that Nisha ma'am has joined us today and she is moderating the session. So on this note, without much ado, I will hand over the proceedings to Nisha ma'am.
Thank you so much, Thomas, sir. A very good evening to the accomplished guests who have joined us today from India, and a very good afternoon to all those who are joining us from Nigeria, because we are behind India 4.5 hours and it's afternoon here. And I think on the onset, I would like to, on behalf of all my fellow panelists, I would like to thank Mr. Thomas Matthew, the organizer of today's event, the founder and director of All India Educators Forum. Sir, we are very thankful to you for providing us with this platform where we can learn and express ourselves and we learn from each other. So thank you so much, sir. So coming to our today's topic is how to create a dynamic classroom. I think we teachers are sometimes like scientists. We try to find out, we are concerned to find out the best ways to teach children so that learning reaches everyone. And sometimes we behave like artists because we are still innovative, we are finding ways, methods, we are communicating with each other, we are sharing our ideas, we deconstruct theories so that learning we can teach and students can learn in the best possible way because the possibilities are definitely endless. So, with that note in mind, I would like to share first what do we think that creates a dynamic classroom? And I would like to here use the acronym CRAVE. A dynamic classroom is a classroom where students crave learning. And when I say crave, what do I mean? So, C stands here for a classroom that is communicative, collaborative, and creative. And the students are ready to communicate and share their thoughts with each other. When we say R, we use strategies that are realistic to student life, not very far away from them, realistic strategies that can be adopted in our day to day teaching. When we say A, we want a classroom that where students are not scared to ask questions. Because in a dynamic classroom, every child is a participant, every child has to be engaged with the teacher. We also use V, that is a variety of processes, a multitude of processes to encourage class differentiation to go ahead with the learning process. And definitely E stands for a classroom that evokes emotion, some kind of feeling, empathy, some excitement in the children to go ahead with this learning. For me, I think the very basis of a dynamic classroom and what comes right at the forefront would be creating a very strong and effective lesson plan. Because at that outset, we have to let our students know where this unit is taking them. If we are making our lesson goals and uh, objectives very clear to our students will definitely be excited about the whole learning process. And here, the initial 5 minutes of the classroom are very crucial to grasp that attention. Because in this initial 5 minutes, we have to hook all the learners into the learning process. And we have a lot of strategies that we can use as starter activities. We can use a facts or fibs, a worksheet, or a question board where children differentiate. They recap on their previous learning. They're trying to differentiate the statements, whether they are the facts or they are fibs, or there's something that they want to know is not correct or it is right. And then we can, of course, use the KWL board that I personally use on a very large scale, because being a history teacher, there is not much of practical exercises that we can do, but we can tap the student learning, and we can ask students to tell us what they know about a certain topic, what they want to know about it, and what at the end the same board serves as a plenary where they come and they check where what they have learned, whether they have achieved their goals. So I think that is the first and at the forefront for me. The second basis for a dynamic classroom for me would be student student relationship or a teacher student relationship. And as I said in the word crave, the A is the ability of the child to ask questions. They should not be scared to speak up, they should not be scared to interact. At the same time, they should also be ready to collaborate with their friends. A dynamic classroom is not like a static classroom where we say that the teachers are standing in the front and it's an usual rote method and only one person is talking. Rather, in my classrooms, I would prefer an island kind of a setting where we can divide uh, students into smaller groups, and each group takes the onus of sharing and communicating the learning that is going on there. So I preferably try to use activities like the jigsaw. And the jigsaw is an essential activity that breaks your learning content into smaller chunks. And every group has been given one single piece of chunk to assimilate or to deconstruct or to infer something that can be attached to the main question or the main outcome, the learning outcome. And here it's not a competition among the students, it's more of a collaborative team, because the overall success of each of the team depends whether they are able to communicate with their friends. So here, besides communicating and collaborating, children are also learning life skills like being a good listener, asking questions, presenting themselves in a way that the others are understood, the others can understand them. And then one of my very personal favorites in history is the Raft activity, that is an acronym for role, audience, format, topic. And in this activity, I create a series of roles for my children to be in. It is essentially a writing activity, but I have taken it and modified it to suit the history palette here. And I give children different roles. They could be Napoleon, they could be a Duke, Metternich, they could be any one of the national leaders, and they have an audience. So they are writing for a particular audience uh, given a given topic and a proper format. So they could be writing a speech, they could be writing a letter, they could be writing a protest petition, they could be creating even be creating a So if there is somebody who's enacting as Duke Metternich, there'll be some others who would be in his group that would be acting as the members of who attended the Congress of Vienna, and some would be there, and the format would be like a general discussion, and their topic of query would be that why do we need to redistribute France after the defeat of Napoleon? So it gives children a lot of versatility to enact and to give up, and definitely creates a lot of excitement in the classroom. I've also tried this activity as a podcast where I pair up children just into two roles, one as an interviewer, a TV interviewer, a jockey, or a radio jockey, and the other person whom is interviewing, and again on the given topic and the topic given format. So these activities encourage a lot of thinking out of the box. The children are excited because this is something new, and this is something that they have to go back and look up their lessons and think for themselves. They won't find these activities anywhere to copy or to look up from in the internet. Okay, so these create a lot of excitement, especially in the classroom when we come back and we share our evidences of our work. The other thing, the last thing that for me that helps to create a dynamic classroom is movement. Dynamic classroom is not a static classroom. There has to be some movement. So we have to incorporate activities that create movement in the classroom. I'd like to use activities such as a gallery walk. And in a gallery walk, students are again divided into groups. They are given a topic and they all create their posters on that topic. And afterwards, after they finish the initial 15 minutes, their work is done. They go and stick the posters on the on the classroom walls, and all the other remaining groups will come and inspect their posters and put their sticky notes there and tell them what in that poster was stood out for them and what they think that their friends could have added more, what was missing. So it's a dual activity here. While they're retrospecting on their others work, they're also creating a feedback for their work and thinking, oh, I missed out this in my work, I should have added that. So it creates a lot of movement in the classroom and a lot of excitement. The last activity that I want to share for the day today is creating learning stations. And this is again one of my personal favorites. As I said, when we go in for island settings, we create different islands in the classroom. And here, children move through various activities, and we make use of the multiple intelligence. We make use of different strategies, differentiation strategies, and we create a variety of activities on each table. So, as each group is moving between the tables, they are doing a multitude of activities, and there's a lot of movement in the class. Some activities can be related to viewing a visual video and then creating a report, or creating answering the questions there, or creating a slogan that best identifies what they have heard. Some activities can be related to just simple word scrabbles, or word search, or a scavenger hunt, or a crossword puzzle. Some activities can be like when we were doing for air and atmosphere. I just gave that group an activity to create a jingle or a poster or a rap song that would use certain ideas of how to prevent air pollution and what they can do their bit to save the world. So, with these different activities, as students are moving around the classroom, there is a lot of movement created, and this generates a lot of positive energy in the classroom. Definitely, I would say that these classrooms are not the quietest of classrooms. They are a bit noisy, but then that is because the level of excitement is extremely high. And these, at the end of each of these sessions, there's of course a debriefing session where each group comes and shares their knowledge or what they have learned in the class that day with their friends. So these were some of these strategies that I have been using in my classroom, and I hope you can make use of them because they are extremely versatile. They do not need a lot of resources for you to get prepared beforehand, and definitely they create a lot of excitement and curiosity in the classroom. Having said that, I will now try to move on to my fellow panelists and invite them to share their views. So the first panelist whom I'm inviting today is Mr. Abhishek Kumar Soni. Mr. Abhishek Kumar Soni has moved from being a BCom MBA to the teaching profession, currently working as TGT Social Science in Saroday Gokul Academy, Kirkea. You're very welcome, Mr. Abhishek, to present yourself. Sir, we cannot hear you. You're on mute, sir. So if you could just unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I am really thankful for All India Education Forum for giving me such a wonderful opportunity. Thanks to Matthew sir as well and all panelists. As ma'am, you have shared lot many ideas for making classroom dynamic and effective. Right. Every classroom without teacher is a dynamic. When like teacher is not that, every student is very much excited and doing the things whatever they wants to do. But when the teacher arises in the class, or like comes in the class, classroom become static or silent. Classroom has to be dynamic. I'm 100% agreed for this, and I precisely say that if classroom is not dynamic, that the student is not going to learn anything, because student learn only if they are the actively participating in the class. So dynamic classroom also needs to, it has to be effective one, that the student is getting something from a teacher. Now, like ma'am is also a history teacher and she has given me so many examples. I'm a social science teacher. I'm also teaching the same subject, and ma'am has covered many of the things. So I need not to repeat these things more, but I just want to discuss like that. Uh, First of all, like the student, why he has to understand that why do he need to why does he need to study this subject? Okay, maths is required like for to be counting money or like making house or something. Like science is required to be treat people if somebody is having interest in that. What is the use of this history, or what is the use of political science? What is the use of economics? As like being teacher of the social science, I can say that okay, I can defend. But initially start like with the student is this is the subject which is 100% associated with your social life. That's why the subject is named social studies. If you excel in the social studies, you excel in the society. If you find any leader all over the world, you will see that the leader is excel in one of the subject of social studies, either in economics or in political science or in history or is in geography. Because living in a particular area, you should have a knowledge of that geography, where you are living, what resources you are getting, what matter you are what kind of atmosphere, climate, weather, animals, flora and fauna is available over there. So you should be knowing the geography. If you are knowing the geography, you can live with comfort. You know the political condition of particular region. Like say in India today, it's democratic country. But what about it's like the country like China? You cannot survive like in India, because that's like unpolitical country, or we can say it's undemocratic country, because only one National People's Congress is the party which elects, which take participation in the election and that only get elected. The same like if you are going in economics that like when today we talk about today's like we have to explain to the student like if you are talking about the what we say mehengai or like what I just say uh, does it mean, like what how it is helpful for the student. So making it effective, it is need that we need to understand the student that why he need to learn that particular subject. Now then, for more effective, we should take a part of it, like we should take it related with his today's life. Like okay, if he is living in a society, where he is living, what's going on surrounding him, what is similarity between the thing which has happened in the past and what is happening like today scenario. Like one quote of a politician, like one politician has quoted for Modi is like he's a Hitler. So why he quoted like this? What was done at the time of Hitler, and what was done? What is done? What's like what Modi is doing, which is similar to that, and what is different between both? That at the time of when CA come, that matter has come out. So when we can correlate the student with the current scenario and with the local politics and the local economic conditions, I think we can make it more dynamic. We should ask them to be discussed with you like today's current topic and today's scenario. What we are teaching is always associated with the local politics, local economics, or like local geography. So if we can associate them and we can associate with their family conditions or like their village conditions, society condition, I hope it can be more dynamic and it can be more understandable. And I think they'll learn or they'll study the chapter with more enthusiasm and more dynamic way. And that's all. Like rest, the ma'am has covered many of the points for making it dynamic. I rest here. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Mr. Abhishek. Yes, definitely. You said that learning has to be, children should be able to take away something from the classroom. And that is the true essence of a dynamic classroom where they enrich and they learn certain life skills that will help them in their future journey ahead as learners. Moving on to our very next speaker, she's the principal from Icon Public School, Ahmednagar, Maharashtra. We welcome Mrs. Deepika Nagarwal. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Nisha ma'am, and thank you, Mr. Matthews, for such a pertinent topic, dynamic classrooms. I think this could not have been more relevant in today's day and age, and with the kind of students that we have in our classrooms. So, I'm going to divide what I'm going to talk about into two sections. One is the tangibles, and the other is the intangible. Before I move on, I've heard Nisha ma'am speak and then Mr. Abhishek Soni also speak. I think the most important thing that we need to really address is mindsets. Mindsets of the educators, mindsets of the teachers. Even today, we hear teachers from very reputed schools and who have immense experience behind them say, I will teach the students this. I will give them a topic. I will tell them to do it this way. I think that's the first step that we need to take when we want to make our classrooms dynamic. We need to let the children have a completely their own voice, their own choice as to how they want to learn, what they want to learn, and when they want to learn. And that will only come when we let them be. I think the teacher's role has changed uh, sevenfold, and it has become not to give information or to give knowledge. It is more to spark, to ignite that curiosity in them enough for them to go and seek knowledge. So, what's the first thing that's important in a dynamic classroom? I think Nisha ma'am has spoken about the layout of the classrooms really well. The traditional classrooms, as all of us know, are in these neat rows and columns where each student sits behind the other and the teacher stands right in front of the students. There's a line between the teacher and the students. And what we see in these kind of classrooms is that the communication is individual. It's not between students, it's not between peers. The only communication that takes place is probably between the teachers and the students. To move on to a dynamic classroom, I think it's very, very important to have a collaborative layout, which means you could either have a circular, rectangular, or square kind of a setup, whichever suits your own classroom layout. Now, when we talk about collaboration, I think it's very important for children to work with each other. Again, here the teacher is a facilitator. She is a guide. She's not somebody who tells the children working in different groups that this is the topic I'm going to give you, and this is what you're going to be working on. And I'm going to give you guided questions, and you go research on it. I think it's very important for a teacher to give them that stimulus, whether it is, taking them outdoors, beyond the four walls of the classroom, showing them a video, showing them stimulus pictures, or just striking a main a conversation. And that is what gets them to start thinking and then collaborate with each other. I will not undermine the advantages of collaborative classrooms at all. I'm sure all of us know that it helps the children in learning to get along with each other, to respect each other's opinion, perceptions. They work with a team effort. They solve problems. There's so much of brainstorming that they would probably surprise you with really innovative ideas and imagination. So, the point here that I'm trying to make is that the teacher is a facilitator. She goes from one group to the other, asking questions herself, which makes sure that whatever discussions the children are doing has some kind of a path. And this is something that we've tried to implement in our school, and it's worked wonders with us. Of course, when I say dynamic classroom layout, it also means that there will be times when you would want the children to work individually as well. We know that our traditional assessment systems require us to do that. So, therefore, your infrastructure, your furniture should be such that it can take place in both settings, whether it is for collaborative work or individual work. The second part that I'd like to stress upon is the methodology that we follow in our classrooms. I think we need to move from teaching what to why and how. What is information? something that's easily available on our fingertips, on the students' fingertips. Believe me, they can look for it anywhere and everywhere. So, what is it that a teacher really needs to do? She needs to ask open ended questions, which means you ask them why. Mr. Abhishek Soni also mentioned how. So that is very, very relevant. Also, whatever happens in a dynamic classroom has to be very, very student centric. They must have a voice and a choice in what they're learning, how they're learning, and when they want to learn. Now, in a traditional curriculum, most of us come from different boards, Indian boards, and they're very, very strict and rigid in terms of curriculum. So, what we tried to do in our school was, especially in up to grade 8, we worked with the curriculum that was, we are a CBSE school, so we have a set curriculum. But we can always alter the sequence. We can always alter the method of transiting, the method of the way the children are going to learn. So when you have that kind of freedom, you can actually do wonders with the children. So when you give the students this choice, I think the responsibility of the learning lies on them. Also, we do a lot of assessments, as most schools do. There's just one little thing that has worked brilliantly with us, which is after every assessment, we give them a sheet. And this sheet involves a few rubrics, a few questions that they're supposed to reflect upon. The first one is where they assess themselves as to what worked and what did not work. And then they're supposed to say what needs improvement, which areas are their strengths, which are their weaknesses. Once they have it on paper in black and white, it's very easy for them to reflect upon them, think about it, and then improve from there on. So the responsibility completely is theirs. The onus lies completely on them, and it's worked wonders with us. Also, I think the newer methods of learning, which is flipped classroom, where the children take on the responsibility of teaching, experiential learning, more hands-on experiences. Excursions is something that works brilliantly with us. Opportunity for peer learning again happens in a collaborative setting, makes them inquisitive. They become vibrant. They are more engaged, and of course, they are thinking. In traditional classrooms, we fear that these things do not happen. Also, I would like to talk about creativity. I think creativity is something that is the imagination and the ideas that the students have. They are like a blank wall. And I think it's the teacher's prerogative to be able to strike that spark in them, to be able to come up with ideas. And I'd like to share a little anecdote with you. In class 3, if you're familiar with the CBSE English literature syllabus, there is a poem called Song of the Sea. And the other day I walked into the class and I told them that, okay, you give me 5 or 6 things that you think you would see on a beach. So there were various things that the children talked about, shells and sand and castles and all those things. And there was this one child who said, "Ma'am, I'd like to tell you something that I would see in the sea, in the water." And he said, "Ma'am, I'd like to tell you a submarine." Now, as a teacher, you would probably, I thought that was brilliant because this child was actually thinking out of the box, thinking beyond what was, generally probably taught to a child. Similarly, another time that I went into the classroom, I asked children, "What do you see in the sky?" And this child said, "A helicopter." So again, when you get answers like this, that means the children are thinking. So I think it's very important for teachers to be able to ask the right questions and never discourage a child from saying what he wants to say or what he wishes to express. So again, like Nisha ma'am said, these classrooms are noisy. These classrooms may not be your regular traditional classrooms where the children will be very, very quiet. But yes, that noise is pleasant to the ears. That noise is exciting. It has eureka moments. And believe me, it's a teacher's delight. So I would just like to end with one thing. All of us are educators, and I'd like you to reflect and think. Do your classrooms, in your classrooms, do you create knowledge in pursuit of the student, or do you create students in pursuit of knowledge. Thank you. Over to you, Nisha ma'am.
Thank you so much, Deepika ma'am. That was such an insight, wonderful insight into what you said. And definitely, yes, we have to change our teaching questions to go to the why and the how of learning rather than the what of learning. And definitely inculcate the growth mindset among educators as well as students to spark off that learning flame. Okay, moving on to our next speaker for the day. We have Divya Mehra, who is a TGT Social Science at ITL Public School, Dwarka. You're very welcome, ma'am, to please share your thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nisha ma'am. Thank you for welcoming me. I would like to thank for this opportunity for sharing my insights and thoughts about the dynamic classroom that we've been discussing here as a topic. As we all know, we have already shared multiple ideas and thoughts and ways in which we can possibly be contributing to the classroom. Deepika ma'am and Nisha ma'am has already given us number of ways in which we can be incorporating this in our respective classrooms. So I would like to just highlight a bit more about it as I can add on. My mainstream subject is social science. So I would like to be correlating with that how we can possibly be bringing it to the light so students can possibly learn much better and interact much better in the classroom. So as we are clear by the thought by now that what exactly is dynamic classroom. So when I use the word dynamic classroom, I think we can correlate with the term dynamic learning. So it's all about ways and options and that we can give it to the students to learn by themselves, something that we call as learning by doing themselves. So when the student and the child learns by himself, he basically grows, connects and extends beyond the boundaries of the classroom or respectively the boundaries that he has set for himself. So making the things more productive in the classroom by giving them projects or activities can actually add a bond of for the students to bind together. Yes, of course, it can help them to develop various skills, and probably consciously or unconsciously they will be able to develop themselves in a holistic way. So that is something that we can actually really focus on. And dynamic classroom is a vision for us because for the past 2 years we have seen how the students have actually gone through such a tough times. So looking at that concept today, I think the dynamic classroom provides them a platform to think much beyond the classroom, much beyond what is there behind those four walls, and the opportunities and the ways in which they can interact with others. Now, when we talk about the purpose behind a dynamic classroom, what exactly is the purpose? So, when we're talking about dynamic classroom, basically it's just the way so that a positive classroom atmosphere can give the students the confidence to build up and having learning and communication with a much better way. So in all this, I think the main role goes to the teacher. Now, if we think over what exactly is the role of a teacher here, dynamic classroom is, yes, of course, it's more of students getting involved, but the teacher is a spectator here. She's more of a guide, and yes, she's a facilitator. The main purpose of the teacher here is that she needs to orient the students, help them, and guide them do what exactly they want to be doing, not to be obstructing them, not to be mentioning them. Yes, no, whatever streamlines they want to be doing, it's respectively completely over to the student. So when the child gets the own way to expand himself and he knows there is no boundaries, he possibly will be thinking in a much creative and much better way to enhance himself, his friends around, his peers, his pupils. Then all the more giving him much enough an opportunity to think beyond the context of what exactly he already knows. So here the main role lies with the facilitator, that is the teacher herself or himself. So basically that's the role that is given to the teacher, and it is in her hands how she can modify the classroom and make it from static to completely passive. So that goes completely into the hands of a teacher. Yes, social science is one of the subjects which students are quite afraid of. So it's a kind of a norm created among them. Something that can we teachers as we as teachers can break a barrier about is designing and inventing some activities which possibly makes it easier for the students. Nisha ma'am has already shared multiple of them. Deepika ma'am has highlighted the other few. I would just like to correlate one or two. So basically, it gives a clear vision to the others as well. So in terms of social science, we possibly can give an opportunity to the students to, like, say, for example, giving an activity like design your constitution. So in a way, the child at the beginning of the session, each year, teachers set a certain rules for the behavior and the academics that the student need to follow. So now let's give up the responsibility to the students themselves. Let them set those rules and principles for their own classroom. And believe me, When the students do it for themselves, they are abiding by it. It's when you're going to force them that yes, this is a rule that you need to follow, they might be a bit hesitant about it and they might forget about it. But when the student sets the rule himself, possibly it is his own responsibility and he abides by it. So you can do it with the help of a poster, a chart paper, activity done in the classroom. It can be done in groups, it can be done individually. The platform that the students will get here will be to discuss and think and ponder that what, as I being a teacher of the classroom, should be taking up steps so that the class remains in discipline. Some of the other ways you can possibly take is, like, for example, defining of an area. Like, you are supposed to be telling the students to explore, so we can use Google Maps. For Google Maps, the child can basically be searching on that from his home to school, how much is the distance he's covering. So Google Maps and Google Earth, these are some things that have been actually become very important and essential part of our lives now. So giving an activity related to something that they are doing in a day-to-day life possibly makes them more connected to things, and they feel that they're part of it and they can understand these things better, which is one of the essential things, needs for the students to understand technology, because we cannot escape from the fact that technology is the need of an hour where the students need to be blending themselves, interacting themselves, and then we can furthermore give them the right direction they're supposed to move to. Other than that, ma'am has already mentioned about singing activity, rap songs. You can take up for the continents, for the latitude, longitude, states, and capitals. This overall helps the child to develop his motor skills, which possibly is an overall holistic development for the child. He might not be believing it and not being able to understand it, but the way he is going to catch up with it is ultimately going to develop him overall. So we have multiple activities we can take up. We can take up graphic organizers. History can be very innovative. You can take up the political cartoons as you get in the newspapers as well. You can take up those political cartoons to be explaining history. And there is virtual fields. Like, instead of going to the fields, we can actually have virtual museums. We have virtual field activities. We can take up from the geography field virtually for them to analyze, understand the situation just by using the technology in a much better way. So when we try and test with the students, we have multiple ways. Even Google Alerts, it's one of the sites which basically gives an idea and interpretation to the students that they can analyze the overall perspective of the disasters that has been taking place. So region wise, they can understand the disasters which are being specifically being oriented in that respective region. So in a way, we can actually give a platform to the students to, I think, help and develop others as well. So when your child develops within himself, he has been able to develop other students as well. And dynamic classroom is basically a kind of an atmosphere we create for the students where the learning becomes so easier that the teacher basically is just supposed to guide them and help them go with it. So we have multiple activities we can be incorporating. And with this, we possibly can be focusing on that dynamic classroom is the future now. We have to create an environment for the students that the child learns within the classroom itself so abundant and bulk that possibly he is being actually filled up with thoughts and ideas and knowledge when he's returning back home. Peer educators is also one of the ways. The moment you tell them be a teacher, give them a topic, they'll come to the front and they will be so good and they will be actually be presenting it so well. We have practically followed this multiple times in our classroom, and the students come up with so beautiful ideas, ways of presentation and activities that possibly the teachers also believe that it's just a new way, because the children will definitely will be hearing his pupil much better and they will be learning from them that how possibly we can also take up with an activity in a very different way. The peer educators is also very good activity. In all, if I would like to mention, dynamic classroom basically will be allowing the students to be exploring more opportunities, developing their creative skills, exploring their passions, which is very important for them to be identifying learning at the very early stage of their lives and pursue their learning goals. So the learning process between the teacher and student becomes much possibly easier with the dynamic classroom. Thank you. I would like to conclude on this.
Thank you, Divya ma'am. Yes, again, you have highlighted the importance of creating positive relationships in the classroom to enhance learning and give children the freedom to express themselves. That's the time when their creativity skills shine. So thank you so much for sharing your ideas. And we now move on to someone who's a Google certified educator at level 1, and also QMath International certified teacher. We welcome Ma'am Jasjeet Kaur.
Thank you, Nisha
Ma'am,
ma'am. Thank you, Nisha ma'am and Matthew sir, for giving me such a great opportunity for platform to discuss my views regarding the topic. Good evening, one and all. Let me introduce myself. I am Jasjeet Kaur, a global certified educator as well as globally certified mathematics teacher. I have been associated with QMath as a teacher expert for almost half a decade. Otherwise, I have been in the education sector for almost 2 decades. Now, as per today's topic, what are the effective teaching methodologies for a dynamic classroom? Somebody has rightly said education keeps evolving and every student learns differently. It is up to the teachers to keep the students engaged in the classroom. The best way to learn is to get actively involved in the activities. Learning should not be passive. So, by passive, we want to say that we will engage the students in such a way that they can learn the things in a better way. For this, I'll just show my little activity to you. Suppose we are having such a great activity in the class. We will show the students this activity. Just say that, let them ask them to write down what is today's number. Now, in this, they will show that what exactly is there. They have to discuss whether it is a number, today's number is, and what they have to write it down in that. For example, today's number is 48. In that, we will say that what is the expanded form of that number. Then what write down what is the word form in that. Then write down what exact the next add number to be added into it, what number we have to be subtract from that, then what is the number which is coming after subtracting, whether it is a composite number or a prime number. Then we can ask the student to add next two even numbers, write down the next two odd numbers. After that, student will we have to ask the student to just double that number, then half it that number, and we use the concept of multiplication, then multiply the number by it and then divide it by the number. So in this way we can explain the kids that what exactly is there and how to learn the concepts. The dynamic classroom approach has resulted in achievement of the desired outcome, which was validated through the assessment at the end of the session. We can engage students by taking part in debates, small group objects, and fun role scenarios, etc. Now, in the scenario for the debate program, we can make a group of the students of 3 or 4 students, or we can give them a one topic, and that they will two students will discuss about in the favor of that particular topic, and two students will be discussed against of that topic. So this, like this activity, they will learn anew about the other things. When we are saying that it's a we will discuss, we will help them the kids to doing actively, a group activity is there. So with that small group objects, we can help the kids to understand the concept very easily. We can ask them to bring the some material in the class, just like a toothpicks or a matchbox with a glue or a sheet, so that they can understand. Now we are showing another activity. Suppose this is the activity for the lines. We can show them that what exactly is there. We can ask them to write down what is line, then what is the dot, what are the lines, then what is the line segment, what are the horizontal lines, then what is the maker, and that what is the vertical line, parallel line, then what is the perpendicular line and intersecting lines, or we can ask them to make it a ray or so, like that. So learning diversity can be addressed effectively only when a teacher is aware of learning styles and active learning strategies. Motivation connected to the emotions help the students to participate proactively. Planning learning activities such as revision of the work done in the previous class or a 5-minute brainstorming. Now, in the case of brainstorming, what we can say that we can help the child to think out of the box, as Divya Mehra said, that we have to explain the kids that what exactly is there, what we have to think out of the box is there. And now, just I'm taking a small little example, as I'm a mathematics teacher, so we are explaining the concept to the kids as for the shapes and that. So we are saying that what it is this? This is a eraser. And what is it? It is also an eraser. Now we can say this, what is the shape of this eraser? It is a rectangle in shape. What is the shape of this rectangle? It is an hexagon. So we can ask the student that what is the difference between the two. They will have to think and analyze that in rectangle shape, in this eraser, we are having the 4 straight lines. And apart from that, in this, we are having a 6 straight lines. Another question about thinking logically or analytical things we are using in the class, what we have to say, we can ask the students, so just imagine if I am giving the rectangle eraser number 9, what is the number given to the eraser of the hexagon shape? Let them decide what exactly it is. So after discussion with the class, after having a chit chat with the friends, they will decide that what exactly it is. We have to let them decide what exactly is a rectangle is having. How many letters are there? In rectangle, we are having 9 letters. RECTANGLE. So in rectangle, we are having 9 letters. So we are giving it the number as 9. Similarly, in hexagon, what is the spelling for the hexagon? How many letters are there? So we are giving the number 7 to the eraser hexagon. So in this way, we can plan activities and plan active learning activities and solving mathematical puzzles, conducting scientific experiments and acting short drama. Sketches are just a few examples of how cooperative learning can be incorporated into the classroom learning. Now, as in the case of the toddlers, they are facing the problem of learning the concepts of addition, subtraction. What we can do, we can show them such a great activity. In this, what we can do, we can ask them, give them a sheet with the circles on it. We can ask them to check what is it. There's a number 2. So you can draw a number, you can draw a 2 circles or a 2 images or paste whatever it is. Then put the images in it for the number 1. After that, we can explain them what is the relation between the two. What is 1 more than 2? Then they will come to know that 1 more than 2 is equal to 3. So they will paste the number 3 images, or they can draw the 3 circles to get it down into this. So we are in a position here after the pandemic, post pandemic, the students are in a, they have to get the dynamic environment in the class to learn the things, to come out of the fear of the academics and everything. So I think this is the best way to help the students, to let them engage in the different types of activities. Thus, in my view, the stress on classroom dynamics is essential for the learning and the teaching process. Thank you. Thank you, Nisha ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Jashikar ma'am. Thank you so much. And as you have said, yes, we have to make sure that learning is outcome-based learning, something that children can take away from the classroom into their lives. And I think that is also the demand of the outcome-based education, which demands employment of effective strategies for students of various different learning styles to learn. So thank you so much. And now we move on to our next speaker, someone who has a strong hold on academics from the past 30 years. She's a teacher trainer also and the principal of Guru Gobind Singh Public School and Junior College Nasik. We welcome Jyoti Anupam Samanta ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am. Jyoti
Yes,
ma'am,
good
are you
evening.
able to?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just could not hear you. Right now I could, I heard you. Yeah, good evening, all of you all. Thank you, Nisha ma'am. Thank you, All India Educators Firm and Matthew sir for giving us this chance. I think all of you spoke so well. I think I'm exhausted of ideas right now. But yes, I would just talk about certain things which are very dear to my heart. Is that I always like a dynamic class in a way where children are always doing something. Like every concept I feel can be taught by doing. Like for us, from the time we did B.Ed, we were told about the education philosophy by Gandhiji. He always went in for doing learning by doing. And now I think CBSE has come up with a new handbook called as Joyful Learning. So ultimately, it is doing by learning. And when children are moving around, see, what happens is, in a class of 50 which we have in our school, there are all different type of children, and all different type of children learn differently. So some, maybe the chalk and talk is most welcome. Some will love to hear from his slow and steady from his peer. And so the dynamic means anything that is happening continuously, moving continuously, growing continuously. So the class has to be like that, and we have to make use of every very what should I say, every energy that the child comes in. He has when the child comes new to the school, he has a lot of uh, uh, expectation that, he is told by the school that you're going to learn I mean, from home, that you're going to learn this, you're going to learn that. And then when a child sees that the entire day he is supposed to be sitting in one place and just listen to teachers, many of them don't like school anymore. So I feel, if the lower classes, the class activities, the class, every period has to be dynamic. Each teacher has to give some work in where the child is involved mentally, physically, and they are allowed to express their views. So first of all, for the dynamic class, we have to see that it is the whole and sole responsibility of the teacher, that how she conducts that class. For that, she has to plan it very meticulously. She has to have a perfect lesson plan along with the resources. For example, if she is going to introduce what is addition for a very lower grade, maybe a second standard or first standard, she should plan it not on the chalk and talk method, but she should plan on a week before, involve the parents, ask them to send some kind of uh, things which the child can use it every in the period. Like, maybe we can ask them to send a lot of beads of different colors, where the teacher can tell the children to add 2 plus 2 plus 2, and the plus sign can be made by the parents. Again, plan it for the resource. We can ask the parents to make a sign of plus, minus, and is equal to, and send it with the child. So each child is doing his own activity. He is he is like we say, the heart, the head, and all the three H's are used when a child is performing in a dynamic activity in a classroom. So here, like, I think Divya was saying, the teacher has to just teach them or be a felicitator, where she will introduce them that this is how you have to do. And when they play around with these things, small things like beads, or if not beads, there are some pencils and rubbers, erasers. Even if the parents can send around some ice cream sticks or something like that. So the child is playing, he doesn't know he's studying, he's playing. And then slowly, by doing this small activities in the class, the child falls in love with school. Usually the children feel scared when it comes to study every day by using notebook and pencil, because they feel study means notebook and pencil. But then all these small concepts can be taught in the class by having a dynamic classroom wherein such things are told. Like, for example, I told you tables also. We can ask the child to put two beads of the same color one time, and then two ones are twos, or two beads at the same two taken twice can be four, two beads taken three times can be six, and so on. We can actually some concepts in maths are abstract, like tables. If you go to other than rote, if you try to explain the child, he will not understand just like that. But if you give him some concrete where he can touch that beads, two beads taken twice are four, he can feel the beads and he can see two groups of two beads, and then they become four. So abstract ideas can be very nicely taught through dynamic classrooms. Then if you go to see that, it is stress relieving. Most of the times when the children are playing and there are things involved where they touch and do, they are relaxed. And you can see when these such activities happen, you can see that there is a lot of connection between the peers. If one child does it very successfully, he or she is there to help the others, and they always help each other, and they can, they feel confident that their friends are also with them, they can also do it. So uh, dynamic or regular activities can be like that. For English, then you can have a lot of phonics session. You can have vocabulary session where you can make children do word train, or then unscramble jumbo words. And then you can ask, one sentence can be told in the class, like a teacher can say one sentence, and then she can ask the entire class, how many of you understood this sentence? Maybe the child can tell back in its own mother tongue or the local language. Then the teacher can speak in a local language and ask the child to convert it into English. So each of them are involved, and every day a new vocabulary is learned. So listening skills can also be like, I used to do this in my lower classes, that I used to record a small story in my own voice, because if you get a recorded story from somewhere, maybe the accent and the voice, the children won't recognize and pick up soon. So when they can hear their own teacher saying story, just play or make them listen just 4 sentences, and then you can stop it and ask them that how many of you understood. Let first time give them a chance to speak there in their own local language, or the language which is common to everyone. So at least we know whether by listening the child is able to comprehend, because in the higher classes, when we're trying to explain difficult concept, if the child does not understand, when he does not listen carefully and does not comprehend, then again it becomes difficult. So the child has to be taught to listen. Nowadays children don't take instructions very easily, because we are not training them to listen. So first thing we have to do is to make them listen certain things. So listening skill is the first thing we have to do, and then when we ask them what did you listen, slowly but surely we are developing their speaking skills also. So listening and speaking goes in hand, and when they speak, every time we can ask them that, suppose for an example, rose is the most the very rose is a nice flower. So we, next time we can say, can you use a new word in place of nice, and we can give them 2 3 words on the blackboard, and you can ask them. So the adjective or the vocabulary increases, the word bank of a child increases, and this happens. You can do these small things in the class on regular basis. Like I tell my teachers, if you're having 10 periods of English, you can use 2 periods to do something like this. Other periods, maybe you'll have to teach and you'll have to complete the notes or syllabus or whatever it is, but then give 2 periods where you can have such interaction with your children. And when you talk to these children, you have to, like, you're the mother of the class. You know the tempo of your class, and you know who is slow, who is not able to cope up. And maybe in the end of the day you realize that there are 5 such children who need extra help, and rest all are doing good. So making a class interactive, making a class dynamic is going to help you for it is a long time investment. So that is one way. And then you can have a picture composition where the child can bring his own family picture initially, because he knows everything there. He knows who is yeah, grandpa hai, grandma hai, whoever is there, they know about it, and whose house it is and where they stay. So that is how we can start giving them small picture compositions. And then maybe they can have a class photograph where the entire class is contributing. Like you can put a picture on the blackboard, and you can ask each child to give one sentence, and then you have a whole essay on the picture of classroom picture or something like that. So make them talk. By making them talk, the communication skills, the vocabularies, the speaking skill, all that basic requirement for the higher classes will start developing slowly but surely. You have to make it a point that these certain things you have to go. Then we have another subject which you can make it very dynamic, is science. You have all the concepts. Basic science initially can be taught either in your labs, or in your gardens, or in your classroom, or on the ground. You can show all different things, from butterflies to plants to flowers. Everything is available in a school campus. Ask the children to plant their own I always used to do this in the 3rd grade, where I was a young teacher. I used to ask the children to take two pots, and in one I used to ask them to bury the banana peel, and in another one I used to tell that you bury the cap of one cold drink or something, plastic cap, and then water it every day. For the next, after 15 to 20 days, I used to ask them to dig it out, and then they used to tell, I used to ask them to write what they saw. So then they used to say that the banana peel was completely decomposed, and the plastic cover has either only become discolored or it is still there, nothing much has happened to it. So this activity, dynamic activity or activity, hands-on activity, will promote them to think about which is biodegradable and non-biodegradable, and maybe they will understand that the plastic remains there for lifelong, but the banana peel, the vegetable peel, adds to the soil and increases its fertility. So there are n numbers of activities you can do, and there is no hard and fast rule that this methodology has to be used in the class, because finally the concept has to be passed over to the other side of your table. The child has to pick up the concept. Maybe one or two will not, maybe there is difficulty in that, but 99% of them understand most of the concept by doing. So dynamism means is only that it has to continuously keep happening. The children have to be doing, and there is always movements. Yes, of course, for this you have to have perfect lesson plan, you have to have your resources in place. Every minute your activity and child's activity has to be planned, and you have to be confident that you will pull this. Otherwise, you begin very nicely, and then finally at the end of the session, you might see the entire class is whole class is full of beats running here, there, and children are creating chaos. So everything has to be structured, planned, and take in confidence. Maybe you can have a co-teacher with you, or one more activity teacher with you, who will be free when you are conducting this in the class. So to give examples, I can go on for a long time, but then right now I think I have done enough. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jyoti ma'am. And well, rightly said that right from the childhood, we can start training our children to be better listeners, better communicators, so that lays the foundation for their creating their teamwork in the later years. And definitely, yes, we need to be better planned to have a smooth and dynamic classroom. We now move on to our next speaker, Kiran Merchant ma'am. She has a rich experience in teaching and has played a leadership role in national and international curricula. She is currently a teacher and leadership trainer, a teacher mentor, a coach, as well as a school mentor. You're very welcome, ma'am. Over to you.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you so much, Nisha ma'am, for the introduction. And thank you very much, Matthew sir, for this opportunity. So I'm feeling slightly under the weather, so my throat is a bit, my voice, just let me know if my voice is clear or not, because I've got some throat-related issues, but I hope you're able to get me clearly.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, so it is indeed my pleasure and my privilege to be amongst the, eminent educators today. And I've been very keenly listening to all of you. And I think most speakers before me have covered the ground on dynamic classrooms very well. Many of you have rightly said that dynamic classrooms are classrooms where students are engaged, where students take responsibility of their learning, where students are adventurers, they are discoverers, they are thinking, they are independent learners. So these are some of the traits of the dynamic classrooms, where students don different roles of, kind of being explorers and thinkers. And what does a dynamic classroom look like? I think, again, many of you have mentioned that it's a noisy classroom, it's a chaotic classroom, it's a very flexible classroom where teachers can arrange and rearrange the furniture depending upon the activity. But let me also share this with you that even if we have row seating, we can still have a dynamic classroom going with, and we can still have flexible seating with a little bit of imagination and creativity, where we can tell the students to turn one way or the other for any group discussion or activities. because many of the schools still have row seatings, and there's a misconception that the teachers have that we only need flexible furniture and flexible seating arrangement where we can pull the furniture one way or the other and make children do the activities. Many a times I have even told the teachers that if you are not able to do it in your classroom because of the lack of space, row seating has you cannot move the students. So you can take them outside of the classroom and make them sit in a circle in the open space and conduct the activities. So you don't have to have them in the classroom. Yeah, it's a chaotic classroom, but there's a very, very organized chaos there. So again, many of you have covered most of the strategies that are used to make the classroom dynamic, and I run the risk of repeating some of them. But I will definitely add in my experience and my perspective on the same. Jasjit ma'am, I really liked your activity, which you showed on the camera, that math activity where you had numbers and each step had, there was a direction. You add 2 to this number and subtract 5, or, there was this whole series of tasks which you had laid down for the students. The advantage that I see in that activity is that, what happens is that when we teach them a concept, when we teach students a concept, the natural tendency is to give them 10 sums or 15 sums of the same nature for practice. Okay, so that has its own merit. They need repetition for practice. But the point is, we must not stop there. So activity like what Jasjit ma'am presented, helps them to not only revise the previous concepts, because she has kind of asked them to expand the form, write in words, and then add or subtract, with the number of the day and all that. But the beauty of this activity is that, if I have understood this correctly, every student could have a different number. The whole class need not take the same number. I could, as a student, be taking 48 as a number, another student could be taking 54 as a number, the other student could be taking 60 as a number, and keep following the direction of the task. So that is something which was very interesting for me. Again, her activity on those line segments that she showed was good. But I would like to take this one step ahead and say that, after teaching them everything about lines and, maybe shapes also, or even before that, we can tell them to come up with a piece of art in which you have, let's say, 3 horizontal lines, 2 vertical lines, 5 diagonal lines, 3 circles, 2 hexagons, whatever. I mean, we can use our creativity and convert this into a situation where children look at what is required for that artifact and draw according to it. So again, here you will see that every child comes up with a different kind of artifact. Some children will draw a house, some children will draw a landscape, some children will draw a chair, some children will. So every output is different. And again, here, one of the very important skill for our children to develop is a skill of perspective. That everything need not have the same end result and the same outcome. So we need to develop perspective. So by seeing that, one child has drawn a chair, the other child has drawn a house, the third child may have drawn a landscape, the fourth child may have drawn, let's say a dining table or whatever. They can see that there are endless possibilities with the same instructions. So, and all of them are using their thinking and their creativity in this activity, and it becomes interesting for them. And they're learning about lines and segments and circles and shapes. So, so this was a little bit of extension of Jasjit ma'am's activity that I thought I could share. Again, I think one of the co-panelists spoke about the importance of questioning, which I feel is very important strategy to develop a very dynamic and a thinking classroom. So, so we all know that teachers love to ask questions, and not all children are able to answer. And children who are not able to answer, sometimes they feel overwhelmed and threatened, and they actually withdraw themselves from the whole process. So what is it and how is it then the teacher can make the classroom environment non-threatening and yet dynamic, so that it becomes more inclusive in nature? So questioning is a big tool for that. So the teacher can ask questions, and these questions can start with simple closed-end questions, but definitely has to move on to the open-ended questions. Questions where there will be multiple perspectives, questions that will have multiple answers. Even in math, we can have multiple answers for the same question. So teachers must encourage this multiple response to a same question in the classroom. And to include children who probably may not come forward and answer, she can pose very, very simple question to those students, or sometimes can just ask them whether they agree with the peer who has answered the question. So effectively, the teacher can keep bouncing the question from one student to another, to another, to another, and make the class a very thinking class. Very often teachers, as teachers, what we see, the minute we ask a question, we will have some 10 hands going up. Ma'am, I know the answer, and I know the answer. And the tendency is then to pick up students who, we think will be able to take the class forward. But if we tell them that take 2 minutes to think, and then I will call out the student who I want to. So what happens? We give students not only just the time to think, but also let them know the importance of thinking. Because very often we see when the hands come up, it's the first answer that comes in their mind, and they just want to say that answer. Sometimes it's correct, sometimes it's not correct. So questioning keeps the class thinking. But I would like to add one more aspect of questioning, is that as teachers, yes, we ask questions, but how about allowing children to ask questions? If we give them that facility, that I want you all to ask questions either to each other or to me, okay, and give them a stimulus or a picture. So how can we start this? We can, if for example, I'm going to start a lesson on let's say, which I did very recently, combustion, for example. And I just showed them few pictures as stimulus, and I told them, when you look at the pictures, you write down as many questions that comes to your mind. Don't think this is a silly question. Don't think this is a difficult question. Don't give any rating to any question. Just write. Even if you want to say that what is the color of the fire in picture 2, you just put it down. Okay, and then we will consolidate the questions, and then some of the easy questions the children are able to answer themselves with the peer group, and then difficult questions I put down on the chart, and we said that, okay, we will take up these questions one by one. So tomorrow's question is this, which is essentially one of the learning objectives of the lesson. But for a student, it is something that he or she has come up with. And therefore the excitement of being part of the class or learning before the class is very high. So questioning, I would like to say, can be from both the ends. From the teacher's side, very important to have open-ended questions. And from the student's side, it's important that they write anything that comes to their mind, for the given topic, so that they get to know more. And sometimes you will see, it's like I was pleasantly surprised that they put questions which was beyond the scope of their syllabus. So which means they are hungry for more. They want more. They're keen to learn more. And definitely, as a facilitator, as a teacher, it becomes my responsibility to answer those queries. So here in this process, the teacher, I would say, is not just maybe the facilitator, but the activator of knowledge. She activates the knowledge, which either it's a prior knowledge or the knowledge which the students get from the initial discussion, and takes the class discussion deeper into the subject. The second strategy that I would like to bring here, I think again one of the co-panelists did mention about it, is flipped learning. I think she mentioned it as flipped classroom. I prefer to call it as flipped learning, because I would say that that learning is flipped. Whatever you were supposed to learn in class, now you're learning at home, and what we were supposed to learn at home, you're learning here. So essentially what I've seen is that when teachers use this strategy of flipped learning, they do give students part of the chapter or concept where they prepare and come, and either they present it to their peers or they answer questions given by the teacher on the topic, which is all right, which is good. But I think teachers must take it one step ahead to include discussions, case studies, problems, debates, experiments, solving problems, etc. in class. So the way it works is that students acquire knowledge of the content at home, which means the teacher can tell them that tomorrow we are going to discuss this chapter, so read the content and come and make a summary of the content. And next day in the class, she does a quick check on how the understanding is. And instead of repeating the content again, she initiates a class discussion on the merits of whatever, it could be something like a debate. Let's say if the teacher is discussing, if it's a lesson on democracy and dictatorship, so there can be a debate or a discussion or even a panel discussion. So essentially in class, in the presence of the teacher, higher order thinking is activated, rather than having to learn that subject only at knowledge base or content base. Higher order thinking is something which is, I'm sure everyone here is aware of Bloom's taxonomy. So, let them do the comprehension, the bottom two levels at home, which means read the content and come. And in class, let them apply it to the given situation, which either the teacher brings in, or get into a debate, or evaluate different possibilities, or create something of their own. So that is the beauty of flipped learning. Children are very engaged. Many times when I've proposed this to the teachers, sometimes, they say that, ma'am, you know what? They don't read at home and come. Okay. And to which, according to my own experience, okay, one day they will not read, second day they will not read. But then when they see that they are not able to participate effectively in the discussions, they definitely will go back and change their habits and read and come. So that way, you're not only helping them, you're actually helping them by changing their habits also, because every child wants to be part of the class discussion. And during this time, it's very important for the teacher to be non-judgmental. We are only looking at perspectives. We are only looking at different ideologies. So that's what I would say, that flipped learning, where the higher order thinking activities can be done in class, and the bottommost of Bloom's taxonomy can be given as content or homework for the children to read. Another strategy is using multiple intelligence. Again, I think one of the co-panelists has already spoken about it, but I would like to share an anecdote here, which actually changed my perspective, in education. Again, as a young teacher, I have taught Hindi in a non-Hindi speaking region. So I'm not by qualification a Hindi teacher, but since I can speak Hindi, I was given this task to teach Hindi. So teaching Hindi in a state where Hindi is not at all present in the environment can be a very daunting task. So the natural thing which teachers do is, chalo ye shabd hai aur iske meaning rat lo, and things like that. So I was teaching this poem called Gudiya Rani in grade 2, and this poem had it was a 5 paragraph poem where it described the Gudiya, the doll, from her features to the clothes that she's wearing and all of that. And I was really struggling in terms of how to explain this to the students with difficult words that were given in the poem. And as I was kind of, and this was an impromptu, we've talked about planning, and I don't for a moment undermine the importance of planning, but sometimes impromptu thoughts that comes to your mind also can, make a big difference. So I suddenly, I spotted a girl who I knew was a very good Bharatanatyam dancer. So I called her and I told her, I said, look, can you depict this poem with Bharatanatyam, as a teaching tool? So she said, ma'am, just give me 2 minutes. And I sat with her and I told her, okay, Akhil Neeli's eyes and nose and all of that. In 5 minutes, she entered the class with another classmate of hers who also was a Bharatanatyam dancer. And both of them actually danced to that poem. And it was one of the most fulfilling classes of my career till that point, because children really understood all the descriptive words about the doll and everything about whatever was mentioned in the poem. So here again, like
I'll request you to just wind up. We are
okay.
So because a lot of speakers are left. So I know that you have a lot of things to share, but at the same time, a lot of people are waiting. So I'll request you to.
Okay. Sure. Just to conclude this, so yeah, art integration. This is what art integration is, and our NEP really, talks about art integration. And thank you, Matthew sir, for reminding me. And I would like to conclude here by saying that dynamic classrooms will be a reality when the paradigm shifts from how to teach to how children learn. Our focus must be how children learn, and we then need to have those toolkits in our kitty to kind of create interesting classrooms. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Kiran ma'am. And as you have rightly said, that questioning keeps the class thinking, and that's what we want to inculcate in our students. Let's move on to our very next speaker, who is the Assistant Professor in Applied Science, Mrs. Nidhi Sharma. Ma'am, over to you.
And today, amongst all the esteemed panelists, have covered a lot of strategies which we should employ to the class during the classroom. So I'm here with a strategy to make it should be in the beginning of the classroom. What I feel, the moment we enter the classroom, the strategy we should apply to make the class really dynamic. So I feel the connect what we should have with the students, building a relationship with the students. So see, students come from different age, they're of different age groups, they have different intelligence level, they come from different background. So our motive as a educator should be to develop that relationship with our students. See, if we as an educator are put into a situation where we are not comfortable, where we are asked to we are asked to do something, probably our result would vary because we are not comfortable in that situation. So I feel the emotional connect. So this would make them emotionally, physically, mentally present in the class. So I've been doing a lot of things to develop that connect with my students. First of all, I try to be emphatic listener with my students. I tell them, the moment I enter my class, I start my class, I share my day experience. How was my day? Or if I come across something happened during the day with me, I share with them. And I tell them how I have tried to resolve that. And I ask them, do you think if you would have been in my place, how would have you reacted to the situation? So slowly and slowly, they open up with their way of thinking, the way they think. And this, make me connect to my students. Second, when I begin my session with my students, I play a lot of ice-breaking games with them so that they are comfortable. So one of the games I generally play with my students is I ask them to say an adjective before their name. So, and the adjective should begin with the first letter of their name. So like if I say Ananya, so I should be, so I would say amiable Ananya. I would say Tarun, so I would say trustworthy Tarun. So this way, first of all, there is a positive assertion amongst themselves that yes, we have these qualities in us. Plus, they try to open up. So this is the way I'm building relationship with my students. I want to conclude. Rest all the panelists are giving lot of strategies which are really wonderful. It should be employed, but I feel learning is a very social activity, and as educators, we should really stress upon building that strong, authentic relationship with our students to make it really dynamic.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And definitely, we need our students to be more collaborative, more social in order to succeed. We are now moving on to our very next speaker, who is the founder of the Mentors World. He's also a career counselor at the Sunbeam School and also a certified global career counselor from UCLA. We welcome Sir Nikhil Kumar Rao. Sir, are you there in the panel? Nikhil, sir? I think I
He's
didn't.
not there, ma'am. You can move on.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just wait for Sir to rejoin. Until then, we move on to another teacher trainer who's the founder of the EduSpire Academy and a certified NAS empaneled career counselor. We welcome Mrs. Preeti Mehta. Preeti ma'am, are you there? I don't see her also, sir. We move on to our next panelist till we wait for these to rejoin. Ravinder Kaur ma'am, she's a retired PGT, a TGT English in Sagar Public School, Gandhinagar, Bhopal. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Nisha ma'am, for introducing me. And thank you, Matthew sir, for giving this platform to discuss about the strategies to be used in the dynamic classroom. Up till now, so many speakers, they have put their views in front of us and so many things have been already discussed, isn't it? But I would like to tell the meaning of dynamic. That is D for discourse, and Y for yes to multimedia, and N for nurturing multi intelligence, and A for assessing whatever has happened, and M for music, and I for inquiry. I had been teaching English almost like 25 years to my credit. And time again, different, strategies have come over. Earlier, it was the time when lecture method was used and some like reading and writing was given to the children to do. Now the things have changed. Now the multimedia, the projectors, LCDs, all they have come, whiteboards, they have come into our classes, and that has made almost our class dynamic already. Now it is the work of the teacher how to use those things, how to make children actively participate whatever is planned by the teacher, how their intelligence is developed, and how active they become. See, if I am teaching English, there are, abilities which have to be, inculcated, like LSRW. That is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. All these four capabilities are important to be developed in the classroom. If we develop only one ability, that is writing, then others are ignored. That should not happen. So, for that purpose, I will discuss with you a technique like for listening. For the higher classes, I would like to tell that is for like TED Talks. That TED Talks are very useful, which are available on internet. And these TED Talks we can, play in a classroom on a whiteboard, smart boards, and make the children listen. When the children are listening to the talks, they listen very carefully. By this, their listening ability has been enhanced, and by listening this, afterward the task which can be assigned to these to the students is to write the speech and to write the report. So and then after the completion of their task, they can present their speeches in the classroom also. So in this way, all the four capabilities are enhanced. So this is one type of activity which is normally we are using in our classes in Saga Public School. And then for the higher classes students, not only TED Talks, we are using podcast also. It happened that the students from class 11th, they were assigned some topics for their ASL activity, and they had to they had to prepare podcast. So in a way they all developed this habit of speaking, recording, presenting, and presenting in the class. All that was developed. So this is the way we can do it with the children. And not only that, when we hear to those podcasts in the class, the other children, they can also develop the art of listening and the presentations. So these are some of the activities we can do with our children, those who are in classes 11, 12th, even 9, 10th also. So now we are talking about not only these children, but we are talking about the other classes also, where we have to conduct different activities. One of the activities I would like to talk about here is that is raft. Raft is R is the role, and then A is the audience, and then we have F. F is the format, and T is the topic. In this, children are given a certain topic away from whatever they are reading, like from the lesson. In this, they are supposed to understand what the writer wants from us, what is the like his purpose to write, and what the audiences they want to hear, and what is the format of writing, and what is we can say is the topic. So for this is a very nice tool which we can use for different writing skills. For example, in class ninth there is that chapter, the little girl. In that story, it so happens that the girl is living with her father, and the father is very strict. He doesn't let the child come near him, and he doesn't pay much attention to her. And then she feels very sad, and depressed, and she looks after, over the fence. Sometimes she goes there near the fence, and she looks at our neighbor, and there Mr. McDonald is playing with the children and all that. She feels very sad. She feels as if my father should also behave like that. So thinking this over this, we can give the children a question. Imagine you are the little girl of the story. Write a letter to your father. Write a letter to your father asking him to play like the neighbor. The way he is doing, you can also do. So in this manner, the writing letters, the skill of writing letter will be developed. And another thing, same topic you can say is that when we can give them email writing also. So junior classes, they can write email, thinking about the the character, and then they can talk about in the class whatever they have written, they can discuss. So this is a quite nice technique which we can use in our classes to develop our speaking, writing, and listening. Then we come to a very good that is tool which we are using. That tool is graphic organizers. Based on each chapter, we can ask the children to draw graphic organizers. Supposing we are teaching a story, and in that there is one character, so children will write all the characteristics about him or her, whichever is the leading character of the story. So what happens is, when there is these people draw organizers, then what happens is they can understand the concept at a glance only. They afterwards also they can see those graphic organizers, and they can learn the topic very easily. In the same manner, in this concern, we ask the children to draw mind maps also. Mind maps can be drawn on different topics of English, like they can be drawn for we can say, if it is on the poem, then on the poem we can write about the poet's name, and the main poetic devices, what is the central idea of the poem, and what is the theme, little like 2 3 lines only, and a nice mind map is prepared. So in this manner, these are the activities which can enhance the learning, and then that keeps the children occupied. Not only like if we are doing it with the class in a lecture method, or we are just reading the poem and they are reading the poem and then writing the question answers, that is not very interesting for the children. But as soon as you tell them to draw the mind maps, they quickly start working on it and they start thinking. And while the time of revision, they can open their notebooks, and they can always go through those notebooks, and at a glance they can understand what is the concept of the chapter or the poem. So in one more thing I would like to discuss in this at this panel is that once we had this activity of interviewing. So that art is also very important for the English teachers to be inculcated in the students. That is very important. Media is so important for the children. We can understand, like most of the earnings, we have to make them understand that English is also important subject which can earn a lot for you, isn't it? Like otherwise the children lose their interest. And we can say that if you tell them to interview, I had done this activity in my class. I told them to do the interview of different places. Like you go to petrol pump, you go to temple, you go to park, and whomsoever you find that they are like you can interview them comfortably, so you do. So it so happened that my children went to all these places, and then they prepared the interview. So in that manner, wonderful videos they were created by the children, and they all brought in their pen drives and emails they had given. And then the smart boards, we had to, like, they were displayed. So not only their listening, speaking, and their creativity is enhanced, plus the presentation which the children gave after that was just wonderful. And the thrill which they had got in doing that activity was really, we cannot describe that in our words, how actively they had done this activity in the class. And after preparing that also, then we can very simple tools which we are using, that is, we are taking the
Ravinder ma'am,
children to
I'll
the
request you to wind up. We are going short of time. We are all
sorry.
the some of the
Okay, sir.
panelists are yeah. Please do wind up.
Okay,
Thank
sir.
you.
Yes. So these some of the tools more I would have discussed. Thank you very much, Matthew sir, for giving me this chance. And I think I have discussed enough of the activities to be taken in the English classes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ravinder ma'am. Yes, and definitely some of the activities you have shared could be across various subject content matters, not only for English. We do definitely use them for different subjects as well. And we move on now. Nikhil sir is back with us. So we move on to, we give the field over to Nikhil sir to share his views. He's the founder mentor of Mentors World. He's also career counselor at the Sunbeam School, Mughal Sarai, UP, and also a certified global career counselor from UCLA. You're very welcome, sir, and over to you. Sir, we cannot hear you, sir. Could you just check your connection? We cannot hear you. No, not yet.
Sir, you can remove your headphones. Yeah, just plug it out from the laptop, and try speaking. Speak something, sir. No,
No, sir.
unfortunately, we are not able to hear. So we'll come back to Nikhil sir later, or we can continue with.
Yes. Yeah, we can move on to our next speaker for the day, Shalu Sanotra ma'am. She's a TGT Science in Panchil Public School, New Delhi. You're very welcome, ma'am. Over to you.
Hello everyone. I would like to give heartiest gratitude to Matthew sir to provide us the platform to share our views with others. I am really delightful to be a part of AIEF. Thank you so much, Nisha ma'am, to introduce me in such a pretty way, and all panelists and all viewers who will listen me with patience. Today's topic is effective teaching methodologies for a dynamic classroom. First of all, I will like to share Sanskrit shalok with you. Vidvatam dakshata shilam sankrantir शीलनम शिक्षकस्य गुणाम सप्त सचेतसवन prasanata means scholarship, cleverness, good conduct, teaching skills, repeated study, conscientiousness, and kindness. These are the seven qualities of a teacher. These are the qualities of the teachers which make their classroom wonderful by their effective teaching methodologies. A dynamic learning environment is characterized by change, activity, and progress. It is intentionally designed to meet the needs of all students while challenging them to enhance existing skills, interest, and understanding as well as meaningfully building new ones. Introducing dynamics in the classroom will not only help us to keep our students active, lively, and motivated, but it will also facilitate the overall all learning experience for the students and the effectiveness of teaching. Teachers are not only meant for teaching subject now, but they are also adults, moderators, facilitators, motivators, etc. Teachers can build positive relationships through communication, promote class discussion and peer interaction. Also stay connected with students to come up with the projects. In ancient times in Gurukul, students listened carefully to teacher and learned by heart because their concentration was very strong when there was no technology. But nowadays there is a lots of technology and students are unable to gain main purpose of education. No doubt all the students have knowledge, but it is non-directional in this time, and students are more tech savvy than teachers, but this knowledge is not having any aim. That is the role of the teacher over here, is to give direction to the knowledge. Like in science, there is a chapter named electricity. In this chapter, we studied that metals have the free electrons, but they do not conduct electricity. But when they are connected with some source or battery, the electrons start moving and gives wonderful result in the form of electricity, which is a lifeline of every aspect of today's world. Same like that, without teachers, students have knowledge, but it is non-directional. So here, teacher's role is to give the right direction to all of the students. There are different type of learners in the same classroom. Some are slow learners, some are prepared well before teacher's instructions. Above average students can do work by his own, and they can submit their work before time. And also they have understanding of most of the topics before, but for the average student, there is a need of some push. Above average students also create some problems in the class. They speak before the teacher is going to explain the topic. So what I do in my class, I call students in front of all the class and tell them to explain the topic before I start the chapter. So when they will explain the topic, they feel very happy and satisfied. And then in between the chapter, they are not used to disturb me. And what about the weak students? As they are also present in every class, this is the most challenging task for teachers to uplift them. I also do little work on them. I divide the class into various groups, and in every group, the leader is above average student who monitors his team of 2 or 3 weak students. As I am not available in the class for whole of the day because I can take only one period in the class, the team leader can keep watch on his team. He will get report to me whether they have completed their work or not. Second incidence was with my 10th class as the syllabus was completed and I have to give revision in the class. But students are not going to listen me because of the weak and notorious students. They do not let me to do this. They are creating noise in the class and they are interrupting me. Then one idea struck in my mind. I told to weak students that they will ask some questions only to the average and above average students. But the questions should be prepared by them by their own, and they also have to listen carefully and check by their own whether the answers are correct or not. They feel very happy that they will ask questions from the above average students. My problem gets solved. The above average students can give answers because they are having the revision, and also the weak students uh, read the topic carefully and prepare some questions, but that was very difficult task for me. In my class, I also teach some topics by role play method, and student find it very interesting. In this post-pandemic, when the students forgot to read and write, we have also make effort on reading and writing skills. The reading of chapter before the explanation can make to increase the ability of reading, and taking notes while the teacher is explaining the chapter increase their writing ability. There are more ideas which come accordingly in every teacher's mind when they face such kind of problems, when they are facing such kind of problems in the class. So now teaching is not only on the lecture based, it is child oriented. Every time when teachers goes in the class, it is like when a soldier come in the battlefield. But here, this is not the battlefield. We are facing our enemy, but we have to prepare army by understanding their intellectual ability and prepare them for their future, who become master in their field and rises the name of our country. Thanks to you all. Thank you, Nisha ma'am. Thank you, Matthew sir. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your wonderful strategies. We now move on to our last speaker for the day. We have Shruti Sarkar, ma'am, who's a PGT English. She's a subject coordinator at the NK Bargodia Public School, Rohini, Delhi, and also a coordinator for EduEdge. You're very welcome, ma'am, and thank you for being so patient. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Matthew sir for being our mentor and for giving us this wonderful platform. I have attended a number of sessions on AI, AF, and being a part of the panelist is really an overwhelming experience for me. We have listened to around 10 to 11 erudite educators, and each one of us is unique and had his or her own way of innovative methodologies of making a classroom dynamic. I will try my best not to be redundant and hope that you have some takeaway from here today. Now, first and foremost, that we are teaching most of us, in Indian classrooms, which have sizes of 40 plus, and this plus can go up till 90, 60, 100 also. So how do we make our huge class size dynamic, right? We will always not get an opportunity to make the settings as per, some co-panelists told us, a square or a rectangular setting, or we will not always get a chance to take the students out in an open area. So we need to focus on strategies which can be conducted in our own classrooms, right? And then next comes that whenever we are collaborating, the students are collaborating, they are being given this experiential learning experience, there is going to be a noise factor, which I know many principals, many revered educators are going to listen to us. They may be listening to us right now also. There is always a problem that the class should not be noisy. So we have to convince our higher ups. That's the first thing to make our classes dynamic, that this is a constructive noise and it is indicating that the TTE, the TTT, the teacher talking time is reducing. And when the students will talk, definitely there is bound to be some noise there in the class. So this brings me to my next point, that experiential learning. Yes, we understand that it is the need of the hour, but there is a notion about this that it is it requires a lot of resources. It is very difficult to plan experiential learning for students. So I want to share 2 anecdotes with you, and I want to tell you that how with the bare minimum resources we can kind of make our classes dynamic and give that experiential learning experience to our students. Now, recently, I had attended one webinar, and the resource person, a very learned ma'am, she gave us a trick that if you want to make your students motivated to read books, carry a book to the class every day. So when they will see you holding a book in your hand, they will definitely get motivated to read the book. and I found it really interesting. I'm not an avid reader, so I took one book which I had not read. That's the mistake that I did. And I started taking it to the class. One or two children, they just, got hooked onto the book. And one fine day, a boy came to me and he started asking me, ma'am, what do you think about the plot? Ma'am, do you think that this twist should not have been there? Or some other twist in the plot would have made it more interesting? And I had absolutely no answer to it. So we always have to go planned in the class, right? So even if we are suggesting them to maybe watch a web series, or so be planned. If you're not reading the book, be smart, at least have the summary of the story with you, read about the plot, and then give that experience to the students. So the Mystery of Kohinoor is a documentary which is going viral everywhere. People are watching it. So I had a lot of curiosity about this. So before making it a point to share it with the students, I watched the documentary myself, and then I suggested it to them, and we had a wonderful discussion in the classroom. So please be prepared, and students, but you can itself be a experiential learning experience for the students. Another very important and very, very recent anecdote is that we have a protocol to write the thought of the day on the chalkboard and the word of the day on the chalkboard. So every day the word and the thought used to be there, but we all are so bound with our syllabus, and we are in a rush all the time. So I never paid heed to what is written on the chalkboard. The monitor had written it. I would just go about with my daily teaching. So I got to know that there was a boy in the class who was writing this thought of the day, which was not the thought of the day which we get on Google, an apple a day keeps a doctor away, or something of that sort. He was making these on his own. So I made it a point that the moment I enter in the class, after keeping down my things, I should just, have a look whether the grammar is okay or no, whether we can improvise it more. So after, say, a week or so, one girl came up to me and said, ma'am, you come to the class and you don't look at us, you straight away look at the board. So I said, yeah, I read the thought of the day. So she told me that, yes, ma'am, because you look at the thought of the day every day, now even I read the thought of the day every day. Imagine that thought of the day used to be on the board for all the 8 periods. But the children were not taking note of it. But just because I was turning back, she noticed this. And then eventually, I swear, we are having a discussion on this every day now. Children, all of us get together. We discuss the thought of the day. We try to, create our own thoughts in the class. So children are now writing. So it's not only one child, more than one students are writing those thoughts, creating them on their own. So the way as an educator, are carrying yourself in the class, involving yourself with the class, is going to be an experience in itself. And here I would like to add on another thing, that experiential learning. See, for example, we are teaching a lesson. Now, this is how, as an educator, I have tried to inculcate this in my students. There's a lesson in class 11, the portrait of a lady, which talks about the grandmother and grandson relationship. So we don't have to plan lavish outings to an old age home, or maybe, there is a lesson about a dog named Duke in class 9. We don't have to do something very, very extraordinary. Just tell your students to feed stray dogs for a week and try to have a connect with them. And like I have some co-panelist was sharing here, I shared my experience with them, that I fed a stray dog during the pandemic. So that dog is like my pet now, only that he stays outside on my staircases. He does not stay inside my house, right? So maybe the students will, get motivated. Similarly, tell them to help an elderly in their society. Next door, somebody is there. Even if they have a family, they are not staying alone. If they're staying alone, okay. If some elderly people they find in their next door neighborhood, somewhere nearby, try to help them with any small task, maybe picking up something from the balcony and giving it to them. Maybe a newspaper was lying there, holding their carry bags with for them. And that itself will help them understand the problems that the elderly people have. They will build a bond with these senior citizens, and also motivate the students. If they have a wonderful bond with their grandparents, nothing like that, but suppose they don't have it, tell them to do something for their grandparents for a week, so they will be able to develop a bond with the grandparents also, right? So factory visits, taking them to a bank, all these, maybe, yes, they are experiential learning exercises, but small things with at micro level can also help us to give this experience to the students. Another very important thing, everybody has been talking about giving a free hand to the students, we are just the facilitators. Agreed, absolutely, I'm on the same page with everyone, but there is very for a dynamic classroom, it is very important that the students understand that the teacher's role is indispensable. A maxim that I use in my classroom, and something related was also discussed previously, that you don't need me exactly for teaching you a poem or a lesson. We have wonderful YouTube videos, you have so many websites where you will get all the answers, all the word meanings, all the literary devices. You actually don't need me for that, but you need me for the pre-reading, the mid-reading, and the post-reading activities that I do with you. Those are not structured and mentioned anywhere. The connect that I make with you, the connect that I make with your lives, how I relate this lesson or a poem to your life is something which makes me indispensable for all of you. And once when we entice these students, we tell them that we are indispensable, they will be engrossed, they will engage, and definitely our classrooms are going to be dynamic classrooms. And another thing that understood, that we have to give these students some kind of freedom of doing a particular activity at their own time as per their own wish and will, but some kind of scaffolding is required. uh, I cannot simply tell a child, okay, fine, this is a topic, go and make a do a research on this and make a project on this. This happens at many places at many times because we are short of time. uh, so there is a website, webquest.org. It has inbuilt, and you can create your own resources there. Give some kind of material to your students, maybe the names of 2 or 3 websites that they have to go through to make the project, maybe subheadings to them, something, so that they can. And this website is for everyone, for all, for mathematics teachers, for social science teachers. It has templates for everybody, and you can create your own also. So some kind of hand holding, some kind of scaffolding is required, even when we are giving a free hold to these students. And another very important thing, before I would come to an end, is that try to dwell on the emotional quotient of the students. You have there are websites where YouTube videos, tinybuddha.com, positivities.com, Brute, where you have small pictures. I'm using them personally. You have small videos, 30 seconds to maximum 2 minutes, 30 seconds videos. Fine, show it to your students and tell them to talk about it. What do they feel about it? And 101%, when you build on their emotion, students these days try to get unmindful at times. We have to build that emotional quotient in them. So when we talk to them through on these lines, definitely that will make our classrooms more engaging. They will make the children will be involved, so our classrooms will be dynamic. Try to break the monotony of your classes. Pop up a quiz suddenly in the middle of a very serious lesson, a vocabulary test. Find maybe a two word spell check. Believe me, it works wonders for the students. So I think that's all for the day. Thank you so much, everyone, for hearing us for such a long duration. But I hope you all had some takeaways today. I am a learner and I had a lot of takeaways today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And of course, definitely our learners will be going away with a repertoire of strategies today. We have given them so many ideas for icebreaker activities, for role play, for SWOT analysis, gap analysis. learning by doing, experiential learning, definitely smart objectives and outcomes to catch the older student, right, hook the students at the beginning of the classes. And right now, Stuti ma'am said also scaffolding is also necessary for helping learners to be active and uh, succeed at what they are doing. And definitely, we are going into a new way of learning and creating into dynamic classrooms. So thank you everyone for listening to us today, and we very much value your comments. Over to you, Matthew, sir.
Yeah, thank you, first of all, Nisha ma'am, for moderating the session today. Uh, although we crossed the time limit, but I think it was worth. So the speakers all shared from their experience, and it was really nice that they brought about so much of learning in today's panel discussion. And I'm happy that we had a lot of people commenting throughout the 2 hours session that we had, which showed that they were actually listening to the ideas, and a lot of positive comments kept coming in the live chat. And once again, so thanks to all the panelists for sparing their valuable time on a Sunday evening, and thanks, a special thanks to all those who were listening to us. That is also requiring a lot of energy and time. And in today's complex situation of offline classes suddenly from the online, where teachers are so busy with making papers, corrections, and preparing lesson plans, sparing out even half an hour or 1 hour to listen to somebody is also something very precious that they can do. The greatest gift that you can do is giving your time to someone. So I wish to thank all our panelists, as well as all those who attended today's program. And I'm sure that in the coming days, more and more people will be listening to all the speakers. So I want to thank all the people who kept commenting, Monica ma'am, Meenakshi ma'am, Balaji ma'am. There were lots of other who continuously kept on the tempo. I couldn't post all the comments, but when you are going through the YouTube live, when you replay it, I'm sure that you're going to go through all the chats that came up. So on this note, it's thank you, and I hope to see you all soon for the next session. There were a lot of it's an interactive session as far as the chat was concerned, and there were so many ideas which came up, and many of them wanted to say something lot more, but because of limitations of time, we had to curtail that. And I'm sure the panelists will get more and more opportunities to share whatever they have told us today, and also they'll be getting more time subsequently. So thank you. On that note, I want to wish you all a very good night. Thank you so much. Till we meet again. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you, sir.